The Philistine temple shook with laughter. Thousands of people were gathered, mocking the once mighty Samson. His hands were bound, his eyes were gone, and his strength vanished. The man who had once struck fear into the Philistines now stood as their prisoner. "Where is your strength now, Samson?" But they did not know. Samson was whispering a prayer. "Lord God, remember me, strengthen me just once more." He placed his hands on the massive stone pillars that held up the temple. With a deep breath, he pushed with every ounce of his might. Suddenly, the ground trembled, the pillars cracked. The great temple of the Philistines began to collapse. How did this happen? How did the strongest man in history end up in chains? To understand, we must go back to the very beginning. Long before Samson was born, the Israelites disobeyed God, so he let the Philistines rule over them for 40 years. A man named Manoah and his wife, who could not have children, lived in Zorah. One day, an angel of the Lord appeared to Manoah's wife and told her she would have a son. The angel said she must not drink wine or eat unclean food. Manoah prayed for more guidance, and God sent the angel again. The angel repeated the instructions. When Manoah offered a sacrifice to God, the angel rose into the fire and disappeared. Let's repeat instruction. He will be set apart for God from birth. He must never drink wine, never touch anything unclean, and never cut his hair. Why would God give such instructions? Was it really important? If you were in this Bible story, what would you do? Let's talk about it in the comments below. He will begin to save Israel from the Philistines. Later, Manoah's wife gave birth to a son named Samson. As he grew, God blessed him, and his spirit began working in him. The woman and her husband Manoah were amazed. They named their son Samson. He would save them from their enemies. As Samson grew, the Spirit of God gave him incredible strength. He wasn't just strong, he was the strongest man who had ever lived. One day, as he walked through the vineyards, a lion leapt out at him. Most people would run in terror, but Samson did not. The power of God came upon him, and with his bare hands he tore the lion apart as easily as if it were a small goat. Later, when he passed by the lion's carcass, he found something strange. A swarm of bees had made honey inside it. He scooped some out and ate it, a reminder that God had given him victory. Samson grew into a mighty warrior, but he often made reckless decisions. He fell in love with a Philistine woman and married her. However, during his wedding feast, the Philistines tricked him in a bet. Angry, Samson left, but when he returned, he discovered his wife had been given to someone else. Enraged, Samson caught 300 foxes. He tied their tails together in pairs, attached flaming torches, and set them loose in the Philistine fields. The fire spread everywhere, burning their crops and vineyards. The Philistines were furious, and war between Samson and the Philistines began. One day, the Philistines came to arrest Samson. 1,000 soldiers surrounded him. Samson looked around and saw the only weapon near him, the jawbone of a donkey. With the Spirit of God upon him, he picked it up and fought. With just a jawbone, he struck down 1,000 men. When the battle was over, Samson threw the jawbone away and named the place Ramath-lehi, meaning Jawbone Hill. The Philistines kept trying to capture Samson, but no one could defeat him. One night, he visited the city of Gaza, and the Philistines planned to trap him inside the city gates. But in the middle of the night, Samson woke up, ripped the massive city gates off their hinges, put them on his shoulders, and carried them all the way up a hill, miles away. The Philistines watched in shock. How could they stop a man with such power? Samson was strong, but he had a great weakness. He followed his own desires instead of God's plan. He fell in love with Delilah, a Philistine woman. The Philistine leaders saw their chance. Find out the secret of his strength. If you do, we will give you great riches. Delilah asked Samson again and again, but he kept tricking her. Until one day he gave in. My strength is in my hair. If it is cut, I will be as weak as any man. That night, as Samson slept, Delilah cut his hair. When the Philistines attacked, Samson tried to fight, but his strength was gone. They captured him, gouged out his eyes, and threw him into prison. The mighty Samson was now a blind, weak slave. The Philistines thought they had won. To celebrate, they gathered in their great temple to mock Samson. They tied him between two giant pillars so everyone could see his shame. But Samson whispered a prayer. "Lord, remember me, give me strength just once more." Then, with all his might, Samson pushed the pillars apart. The entire temple collapsed, killing thousands of Philistines, including their rulers. Samson had fulfilled his mission. He had begun the deliverance of Israel from the Philistines. Even in his final moment, God gave him victory. But how much pain could he have avoided had he trusted God in his decision-making? Strength comes from God, not ourselves. Samson's strength was not really in his hair, it was in his obedience to God. When he relied on himself, he failed. When he relied on God, he won. Be careful who you trust. Samson trusted Delilah even though she repeatedly tried to harm him. We should be wise about who we listen to. Sin has consequences, but God gives second chances. Even though Samson made mistakes, God still used him. When we turn back to God, He can redeem our lives. Use your gifts for God's purpose. Samson was given incredible strength, but he often used it for his own desires. We should use our gifts to honor God, not just ourselves. What could Samson have done differently to avoid such humiliation? How can we use our talents for God instead of just for ourselves? What does this story teach us about second chances? Comment below with your favorite Bible verse or moment from this story. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more Bible content.